Welcome to Coco Tales Reddit, the place where we whisper the stories that are too real to say out loud. Have you ever had that feeling? That little quiet hum under the surface of a perfectly happy moment telling you something isn't quite right. It's a feeling we, especially as women, are often taught to ignore, to smooth over. But sometimes, that little voice is the only thing telling you the truth. Tonight's story is about one of those moments. It's about that gut feeling and what happens when you finally decide to listen to it. It's a story about trust, betrayal, and the quiet strength it takes to choose yourself, even when it feels like your world is about to fall apart. It all started 2 years ago. I met Jenna at a friend's housewarming party, and from the moment we started talking, I was completely hooked. She was one of those people who just radiate energy. She was sharp, incredibly funny, and had this amazing ability to roast you into stunned silence and then say something that would make you double over with laughter about it a second later. We just clicked, you know? The connection felt instant and electric. Things moved fast, the way they do when you think you've found your person. We moved in together after just 8 months. On paper, everything was perfect. We agreed to split all the bills right down the middle, 50/50ths. But reality was messier. It seemed like every other month, her freelance work would suddenly dry up, or some unexpected expense would pop up, and I'd find myself covering her half, just for this month. I didn't mind at first. I loved her, and you help the person you love. I just filed it away as one of those things that happen in a relationship. But there were other things, too. Little things that felt like tiny cracks in a perfect picture. The main thing about Jenna was her incredible talent for making you feel like you were the one who was crazy. It was her superpower. If I ever questioned why she was up and texting someone at 3 in the morning, I'd get a sarcastic, "Wow, I didn't realize I was dating the FBI." I'd ask about a guy from her work, a guy named Derek, she mentioned a lot, and she'd just roll her eyes and say, "He's literally gay, but sure, be jealous." And every single time, I'd end up apologizing. I'd feel so stupid and insecure for even asking, and she'd be the gracious one, accepting my apology for being so paranoid. She was a master at it. The moment it all shattered was 3 weeks ago. It was a totally normal Tuesday night. We were on the couch, just existing in the same space. I was half watching some documentary about penguins, and she was scrolling through Instagram on her phone. This was our life, our comfortable routine. I glanced over, just a casual, normal couple stuff glance, and saw her typing a message. But then, she did something so subtle, yet so loud, that it sent a jolt through me. She tilted her phone away from me. It wasn't a big movement, but it was deliberate. It was a gesture that said, "This is not for you to see." My heart did a weird little flip. And then, this is the part I'll never forget. She deleted the entire conversation. Not one message, not a few. She held her finger down and wiped the whole thread from existence. It was so quick, so practiced. I tried to keep my voice light, casual. "Who was that?" I asked, my eyes still on the penguin documentary, pretending I hadn't seen everything. She didn't even look up from her phone. "Oh, just Becca," she said, her voice breezy. "She's planning her bachelorette party. Super secret stuff." She laughed, leaned over, and kissed my cheek before going right back to scrolling through her feed. It was the perfect performance. Smooth, dismissive, and affectionate, all at once. But here's the thing. My mind was suddenly racing, connecting dots I hadn't even realized were there. Becca. Her friend Becca got married last year. I was at the wedding. Jenna was my +1. There was no bachelorette party to plan. I just sat there, the sound of the documentary fading into a dull hum. The lie was so blatant, so lazy. It was like she didn't even care enough to come up with a believable one. The warmth of her kiss was still on my cheek, but all I felt was ice spreading through my chest. And in that moment, sitting right next to me, while I was processing the lie, she did something else. She opened up her Instagram stories and posted one of those generic, toxic positivity quotes. The words flashed on her screen, and it felt like a direct punch to the gut. It read, "If you can't trust me, you don't deserve me." The irony was staggering. The phone in her hand was literally still warm from the heat of her deleting evidence of her lies, and she was posting that. It was so audacious, so utterly shameless, that something inside me just snapped. The part of me that always made excuses for her, the part that always felt stupid for doubting her, it just went silent. I picked up my own phone. My hands were perfectly steady. I went to her story, to that quote. I liked the post. Then, I wrote a comment for everyone to see. "You're absolutely right." And then, with a few more taps, I navigated to my profile and changed my relationship status to single. I put my phone down on the coffee table, face up. I didn't look at her. I just stared at the television, watching penguins huddle together for warmth, and waited. I didn't have to wait long. The first call came in less than 3 minutes. Her face flashed on my screen. I looked at it, then back at the penguins. I let it ring. That first call was just the beginning. It was like I'd kicked a hornet's nest. After the first ring cycle ended, my phone immediately lit up again, and again. It was a relentless, frantic rhythm. In between the calls, texts started flooding in. At first, they were just confused. Question marks. Then, "Pick up your phone." Then they started getting angry. "This isn't funny anymore." I just sat there, watching the screen light up with her name, feeling a strange sense of calm detachment. Every rejected call, every ignored text, felt like I was taking back a piece of myself that she had chipped away. It was a silent battle, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was winning. By the time midnight rolled around, I had 31 missed calls and 47 texts. The notifications were a testament to her spiraling panic. Then came the one that made my decision for me. A simple, declarative text. "I'm coming over." My heart hammered in my chest. She had a key. Of course, she had a key. The thought of her just letting herself in, bringing her storm into my sanctuary, was unbearable. That was the moment the last bit of hesitation vanished. The jokes were on her, because I had already taken care of it. Earlier that afternoon, a cold resolve had settled over me. During my lunch break, I'd called a 24-hour locksmith. I met him at my apartment building, my hands shoved in my pockets. He was a middle-aged guy with a kind, tired face. As he worked on the lock, he asked the inevitable question, "Everything okay, man?" I gave him a thin smile. "Yeah, just upgrading security," I said, the lie feeling flimsy even to my own ears. He gave me this look, not judgmental, just knowing. It was a look that said he'd seen this exact scenario play out 100 times before. It was a quiet, sad moment of solidarity with countless other people who'd had to change the locks on their own lives. He finished the job, handed me the new keys, and I went back to work feeling lighter, more secure. So when she showed up around 1 a.m., I was ready. I heard the frantic buzzing from the intercom, a desperate, angry sound, like she was trying to Morse code her panic directly into my apartment. I didn't answer. Instead, I walked to my window and peered through the blinds. There she was, standing on the sidewalk under the yellow glow of a streetlight. She was wearing an oversized hoodie, my hoodie, I realized with a pang of bitterness. She looked small and lost, but I could see the anger in her posture. She kept looking up at my window, her face a mixture of confusion, fury, and maybe, just maybe, a little bit of fear. And a cold, hard part of me looked at her standing out there, locked out of my life, and thought, good, let her feel a fraction of the confusion and hurt she'd caused me. I watched until she finally gave up and stormed away into the night. I went to bed and slept more deeply than I had in months. The next morning, the silence in the apartment was beautiful. It was clean, calm. I made coffee, feeling like I could finally breathe. It was then that my phone buzzed with a notification, but it wasn't from her. It was from LinkedIn. Of all the places. The message was from a name I recognized immediately. Derek. Jenna's gay coworker. My blood ran cold. I opened the message, my heart starting to pound again. Apparently, Jenna had already been hard at work, spinning her narrative. He said she had told him some wild story about me being controlling and paranoid, and he just wanted to clear the air, man to man. He was trying to be a good guy, caught in the middle of something he didn't understand. I took a deep breath, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. I could have gone a million different ways with this. I could have been angry, accusatory, but instead, I chose the truth. I typed out a simple reply. I thanked him for reaching out and for his concern. Then I wrote the sentence that would unravel everything. To be honest, I was a little confused by her story, I typed, since Jenna had always assured me that you were gay. I hit send. I watched the screen, waiting for his reply. The little typing indicator, the 3 dots that show someone is writing a message, appeared. It stayed for a few seconds, then vanished. Then it appeared again, and disappeared. It did this about 15 times. A visual representation of someone's world being completely rearranged in real time. Then, nothing. He never replied. The silence was the loudest confession I'd ever heard. The silence from Derek was a gaping hole, an admission of guilt more powerful than any words could have been. I knew, in that moment, that the lie about him being gay was just the tip of the iceberg. It confirmed that my gut feeling hadn't just been right. It had been screaming the truth at me for months, and I'd just been too in love to listen. I screenshotted the brief, damning conversation and saved it. I had a feeling I was going to need it. Of course, Jenna must have realized her cover was blown. Maybe Derek confronted her, or maybe she just sensed the shift in power. Because what came next wasn't an apology or an explanation. It was an all-out war, and her first move was to seize control of the narrative. She went full nuclear. She started with the sympathy route, crafting this long, emotional Instagram story. It was a masterpiece of manipulation. She wrote about going through an incredibly tough time, about being betrayed and learning how to trust again. She was casting herself as the noble, heartbroken victim, and her followers were eating it up. The comments were a predictable flood of, "Stay strong, Queen," and "He didn't deserve you, honey." I watched it all unfold from my kitchen table, eating a bowl of cereal. The absurdity was almost comical, but I nearly choked on my Lucky Charms when I saw a new comment pop up, one that made my blood run cold. It was from my own mom. It was just 2 prayer hands emojis, but it was enough. She had gotten to my mom. My phone started buzzing, and it wasn't Jenna this time. It was my sister, her voice tight with confusion. Then my mom called, her tone dripping with disappointment. Even my dad, a man of few words, sent a text that just said, "You good?" His way of asking if I needed to talk without actually having to talk. It turned out Jenna had been texting my entire family. She'd spun them some sob story about how I had suddenly, out of nowhere, become this jealous, paranoid monster. She told them I'd accused her of cheating with a gay coworker, conveniently leaving out the part where she was the one who told me he was gay in the first place. She painted a picture of a man spiraling, and herself as the poor, loving girlfriend caught in the crossfire. It was brilliant, in a terrifying way. My first instinct was to call them all back, to furiously defend myself and lay out all the evidence. But I stopped. I realized that would be playing her game. It would be my frantic, emotional word against her calm, calculated story. So, I did the hardest thing I could do. Nothing. I didn't defend myself. I didn't explain. I just sent them all the exact same text message. There's more to the story. Please just give me time. But Jenna wasn't done. Not by a long shot. 3 days later, she brought the performance to my front door. My work's front door. Picture this. I'm in the middle of a meeting. There are 5 other people in the room, including my manager. We're going over quarterly reports when my desk phone buzzes. It's the receptionist. "Marcus," she says, her voice hesitant. "Your girlfriend is here. She says it's an emergency." A wave of dread washed over me. An emergency? Of course. I excused myself from the meeting, my face a calm mask. But my mind was racing. I knew this wasn't an emergency. It was a show. And what a show it was. She was standing in the middle of the lobby, making sure she was the center of attention. Tears were streaming down her face, and in her arms, she was holding a box of my things. But not just any things. She'd carefully selected the most sentimental items. Old books, some clothes, and right on top, the watch my grandfather gave me. She was making a spectacle, ensuring everyone, including the lobby security guard, could see her being the bigger person, returning my cherished possessions while clearly, devastatingly heartbroken. "I just wanted to give you these," she said, her voice loud enough for the whole lobby to hear. "I don't understand why you're doing this, but I respect your decision." It was a line straight out of a bad movie. Then she stepped closer, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper meant only for me. "I know about Rachel." I was genuinely confused. Rachel? My coworker, Rachel? The one I've worked with for 3 years, who is happily married to a woman and has a giant wedding photo of them on her desk. What about Rachel? I asked, my confusion real. "Don't play dumb," she hissed. "I saw the lunch receipts." I almost laughed out loud. The lunch receipts? We expense our lunches when we work through a project deadline. It's company policy. Rachel's name is on them because she's the project lead who approves the expenses. It was the most pathetic, desperate grasp for leverage I had ever seen. But I didn't explain this to her. I just looked at her, at the tear-streaked face, and the box of my memories she was using as a prop. I calmly took the box from her. "Thank you for bringing my things," I said, my voice even. Then I turned to walk away. "That's it?" she called after me, her voice cracking with disbelief that her performance wasn't getting the reaction she wanted. "You're not even going to fight for us?" I stopped, but I didn't turn around. I spoke to the closing elevator doors. "You said it yourself," I replied, the words tasting like victory. "If I can't trust you, I don't deserve you." As the elevator doors slid shut, I heard the security guard actually snort with laughter. And for the first time in days, I smiled. The laugh from the security guard felt like a period at the end of a very long, very exhausting sentence. As I rode the elevator up, the weight of the box in my hands felt less like a burden and more like an anchor, grounding me in this new reality. That night, I scrolled through LinkedIn, a weird new habit of mine, and saw that Derek had already updated his profile. He had a new job at a company all the way across town. The timing felt convenient. It was another piece of the puzzle falling into place. Another lie quietly swept under the rug. For 2 weeks, there was silence. Blessed, wonderful silence. I started to breathe again. I started to clean out the spaces she had occupied, both physically and mentally. And that's when I started thinking about the other big mess she'd left behind. The financial one. See, when we moved in together, we had this grand idea that everything would be split 50-50ths. It was the modern, fair thing to do. The problem was, Jenna's credit was completely shot because of some vague misunderstanding with an old roommate. So, the lease went into my name. The utilities, the internet, all of it was tied to me. She was supposed to just transfer me her half every month. Except, she often didn't. There was always a reason. Her freelance work was slow that month, or she had an unexpected car repair, or Mercury was in retrograde, which apparently had a huge impact on her cash flow. I'm a numbers guy. I like knowing where my money is going, so I'd been keeping track of it all in a spreadsheet. Not to be petty, or to hold it over her head, but just for my own sanity. When I finally sat down and tallied it all up, the number was staggering. She owed me roughly $3,400. Just as I was wondering how I'd ever approach that conversation, my phone lit up with a text from her. "Can we talk about the apartment?" I knew she had no legal right to the place. Her name wasn't on the lease. There was no subletting agreement. She was, in the eyes of the law, just my girlfriend who I had let move in. But I agreed to meet. We chose a coffee shop, a public place, with witnesses. I wasn't taking any more chances. She showed up looking like a different person. Her hair had fresh highlights, her nails were done, and she was wearing a new dress I'd never seen before. She was projecting success and stability. "I think we should be adults about this," she began, her tone serious and reasonable. "I'm willing to take over the lease." I almost spit out my coffee. "Take over my lease?" "Our lease," she corrected, her smile tight. I just stared at her. "But I've been paying half," she insisted. "When?" I asked, my voice flat. "What do you mean, when?" she shot back, her composure starting to crack. I didn't argue. I just pulled out my phone, opened my spreadsheet app, and turned the screen towards her. I showed her everything. Every month, every missed payment, every flimsy excuse she'd ever given me, all logged in neat little rows. The color drained from her face. You kept track?" she stammered. That's really weird." "No, what's weird is thinking you have a claim to an apartment you don't actually pay for," I said, my voice colder than I intended. She saw that her performance wasn't working, so she tried another angle. The victim. "Fine," she sighed dramatically. "But I need time to find a new place. The market is crazy right now." She asked for 2 months. 2 months of living in my space, rent-free. 2 weeks, I countered. "That's impossible!" she cried. I took a sip of my coffee and decided to play one of my own cards. "Have you tried talking to Derek?" I asked casually. "I heard his new company has really good relocation benefits." For a split second, the mask didn't just slip, it fell off completely. I saw a flash of pure, unadulterated rage in her eyes before she caught herself and smoothed it over. "How did you?" she started to ask, but I just smiled. "LinkedIn is a beautiful thing," I said. That was it. She stood up so fast her chair screeched against the floor. "You know what? Keep your stupid apartment. I'll stay with friends," she spat, grabbing her purse. "Cool," I said, not moving. I'll have your stuff packed by Thursday. Don't you touch my things. Then get them by Thursday. She stormed out, leaving behind a half-finished $7 latte with extra everything. I picked it up and took a long drink. It tasted like victory and vanilla. Thursday came, but Jenna didn't. I sent one text. Your stuff is in boxes by the door. Let me know when you're coming. Her reply was just 2 words. I'm busy. Friday and Saturday passed in silence. On Sunday, I got a text from an unknown number. Hi, this is Jenna's mom. She says you're holding her belongings hostage. I didn't reply with words. I just sent her screenshots of my entire text conversation with Jenna, my offers, my deadline, her dismissive replies. A minute later, her mom responded. I'll have her pick them up today. Then, after a pause, a second text came through. I'm sorry about all this. A few hours later, a car pulled up. Jenna got out, along with her mom and some tall guy I didn't recognize, who stood by the car trying way too hard to look intimidating. I watched from my window as they loaded boxes into the car, a silent observer of the final dismantling of my old life. They were almost done when I saw Jenna stop dead on the sidewalk. She turned and looked up at my window, her eyes finding mine. Her face crumpled with a new kind of panic. She just realized something was missing. The promise ring I'd bought her for our anniversary. It wasn't in any of the boxes, because it was safe in my sock drawer, right where I'd found it on the bathroom counter the night I changed the locks. A second later, my phone buzzed. Where's my ring? My phone buzzed again. Her name, a familiar, unwelcome sight. Where's my ring? I typed back, playing dumb. What ring? Don't be petty, Marcus. The promise ring. Oh, that ring, I replied, letting the words hang in the air for a moment. The one I bought with my money. What about it? Her reply was instant. You gave it to me. I did, I typed, as a symbol of trust and commitment. So, what happened to the trust and commitment? The typing indicator bubble appeared and disappeared. Appeared and disappeared again. She was struggling, searching for the right angle, the right manipulation. Finally, a new message popped up. I'm calling the police. I stared at the threat, and for the first time, I didn't feel a shred of fear. I just typed back a single word. Okay. I genuinely thought she was bluffing. Just another empty threat in a long line of them. But I had underestimated her capacity for terrible decisions. For about 48 hours, there was nothing. Then, on a Tuesday morning while I was working from home, there was a sharp knock on my door. I peered through the peephole and saw 2 police officers standing there, looking professionally bored. I invited them in, offered them coffee, they politely declined, and listened as they explained they were responding to a theft complaint. Jenna had actually done it. She had filed a report claiming I had stolen jewelry from her worth over $2,000. She even had a receipt, they said. Well, she had a receipt for a ring that cost $300. She had apparently hoped they wouldn't bother asking for proof of value, and that her dramatic story would be enough. The math wasn't just not mathing. It was failing the entire grade. I didn't say a word. I just went to my desk, pulled out a folder, and showed them my own receipt for the ring. I showed them my credit card statement with the matching purchase. I showed them my bank records. The shorter officer looked at the paperwork, then back at me. So, you did buy the ring? He asked. Yes, I said, and I gave it to her as a promise ring while we were together. But you're not together now, the taller one stated. They exchanged a look, and the taller one sighed. Sir, legally speaking, gifts don't have to be returned unless they're conditional, like an engagement ring. He started to explain. I know, I finished for him. Promise rings are just gifts. I looked it up. The shorter officer tilted his head. So, why didn't you just return it? I gave them the most honest answer I had. Because she cheated on me, I said flatly. And I'm petty. A smile flickered across both their faces. The shorter one tried to turn his into a cough, but it was too late. Look, the taller one said, his tone softening. We can't make you return it. This is a civil matter. She'd have to take you to small claims court over a $300 ring. He paused. People have sued for less. They left a few minutes later, suggesting we try to work it out like adults. About 20 minutes after the door closed, my phone exploded with texts from Jenna. Apparently, she did not appreciate the officers calmly explaining how gift law works, or how filing a false police report about the ring's value was technically a crime, or how wasting police resources on a $300 ring made her look, in her own words, unstable. Her final text was a familiar promise. This isn't over. My reply was a familiar response. K. But this is where things got really interesting. My buddy Tyler, the same one who'd been my sounding board through all this, sent me a text. Dude, you are not going to believe this. He'd found Jenna on Tinder, and, in his words, for science, he decided to match with her. Her bio was a work of art. Fresh out of a toxic relationship, no drama, good vibes only. And then the kicker. If you know someone named Marcus, swipe left. My name was literally a warning label. Tyler started screenshotting everything. Her messages to him were exactly what you'd expect. I was the villain, controlling, paranoid, probably cheating myself. The usual projection playlist. But then she brought up Derek. My ex was so jealous of my coworker, she wrote. A completely plutonic relationship, but he just couldn't handle me having male friends. Not platonic, plutonic, as if their friendship was forged in the underworld. Tyler, the absolute legend, asked her about this plutonic friend. Oh, Derek and I don't talk anymore, she replied. My ex harassed him so much at his job that he had to transfer departments. Another lie, so easily spun. LinkedIn didn't call a different company across town a new department. Tyler kept fishing, and she kept talking. It turns out Derek's girlfriend had found their messages. Yes, girlfriend, not boyfriend. That was lie number... Honestly, I'd lost count. The messages were, she admitted, inappropriate, but insisted they were just inside jokes that apparently required deleting at 3 a.m. while I was in the same room. She overreacted, Jenna told Tyler. Just like my ex. People see what they want to see. Tyler sent me everything. I didn't respond to her lies. I just saved every single screenshot in a folder on my computer that I labeled simply receipts. You know, just in case. For a while, the receipts folder was enough. It was my private validation, a collection of truths that anchored me whenever I started to doubt myself. I thought I had the full picture. I thought the story was over. Life began to move on. I threw myself into my work, reconnected with friends, and slowly, the constant, low-grade anxiety that had become my background noise for 2 years began to fade. The apartment started to feel like mine again. Then, one Friday morning, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. Normally, I'd let it go to voicemail, but something told me to pick it up. Is this Marcus? A man's voice asked. Yes, I said. This is Derek. The plot twist I never saw coming. I was silent for a beat, completely thrown. He told me he wanted to apologize. He said he didn't know she had a boyfriend. For how long didn't you know? I asked, my voice flat. There was a long pause on the other end. What? When did you find out she had a boyfriend? I pressed. Another pause, longer this time. About 2 months ago, he finally admitted. We had been together for 2 years. He went on to explain that she had told him we had broken up 6 months ago. 6 months. My mind flashed back through the calendar. Interesting, I said, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. We went to Cabo together 5 months ago. She told me that was a girls' trip, Derek said, his voice laced with dawning horror. We talked for 10 minutes, and he painted a picture of a whole other life Jenna had been living. Work drinks that were actually dates. Weekend shifts that were weekend getaways. The time she supposedly went to help her mom move, she was at Derek's place, playing house with him. He said he was sorry, and I believed him. But then I had to ask, why are you calling me now? Because she's doing the same thing to me, he said, his voice tired. Found her on Tinder yesterday. Before we hung up, he asked one last question. Hey, did she ever tell you about her ex, the one before you? Did she say he was controlling and paranoid? Yeah, I said, the pieces clicking into a terrifyingly clear picture. She told me the same thing about you. After that call, I made a conscious decision to let go. I started therapy. It actually helped. I slowly weaned myself off checking her social media. I bought a bunch of houseplants that I somehow managed to keep alive. I even started dating someone new casually, slowly, but it was nice. For the first time, it felt like I was really healing. Then, last week, I got a notification on LinkedIn, a friend request from a guy named Aaron. No mutual connections, job title just said entrepreneur. I almost ignored it, but his message caught my eye. Hey, Marcus, you don't know me, but I think we should talk. It's about Jenna. Against my better judgment, I accepted. We spoke on the phone that night. His opening line sent a chill down my spine. So, Aaron started, did she tell you I was abusive and controlling? You're the ex before me, I said. It wasn't a question. Bingo, he replied. Our stories were almost identical. The deleted messages, the gaslighting, the gay co-worker who wasn't gay. But Aaron had stuck around long enough to find the holy grail of her deception. He found her second phone, a whole separate device with a separate life dedicated entirely to her extracurricular activities. My head was spinning. But before we hung up, Aaron dropped one last bomb. Did she ever mention her sister, Sarah? He asked. Yeah, all the time, I said. They were super close. There is no Sarah, Aaron said gently. She doesn't have a sister. Sarah is her backup story, her alibi for everything. I thought back to all the times Jenna had to go visit Sarah, help Sarah move, console Sarah through a breakup. It was all a lie, a complete fabrication to cover her tracks. She had one brother. That was it. The final bit of closure came not from a phone call or a text, but in the produce section of a Whole Foods last month. I was reaching for an avocado when I heard my name. It was Jenna's mom. We did that awkward little smile and nod. How are you? She asked, her eyes full of a weary sadness. Good. Really good, I told her, and I meant it. She looked down at the avocados in her hand. I wanted to apologize, she said softly, for taking her side without knowing the whole story. She sighed, a deep, tired sound. She has a pattern, Marcus. She did this with Aaron, with someone before him. I kept hoping she'd grow out of it. Some people don't want to grow, I said. She just nodded slowly and wished me well. And that was it. No final confrontation, no dramatic revenge. Just a quiet acknowledgement in the produce aisle that some people can't be fixed. I sold the ring a few weeks ago and donated the money to a women's shelter. It felt poetic, To everyone who's been through something like this, trust your gut. Document everything. And remember, when someone shows you who they are, believe the evidence, not the words. Oh, and change your locks. Seriously. And breathe. Isn't it strange how a story with so much chaos, so much drama, can end so quietly? Not with a bang, but with a sad conversation between two people over avocados. There was no epic confrontation, no moment where Jenna finally broke down and confessed everything. Marcus's closure wasn't about getting an apology from her. It was about getting validation from her mom, from Derek, from Aaron, and ultimately, from himself. It was the quiet, steady work of rebuilding his own reality after someone had tried so hard to shatter it. This story really makes you think about patterns, doesn't it? The idea that for Jenna, this wasn't a one-time mistake or a simple affair. It was a lifestyle. The second phone, the fake sister, those are tools. That's premeditated infrastructure for a life built on lies. It's terrifying to think that you can love someone, build a home with them, and not even know them. To realize you weren't a partner in a relationship, you were just the latest person cast in a role they'd had other people play before you, and will have others play after you. It brings up so many questions, and I'd love to know what you all think. Let's talk about Marcus's reaction. He admits he was petty. He kept the spreadsheet, he kept the ring. Was that a justified way of reclaiming his power and finances in a situation where he was being emotionally and financially exploited? Or is it always better to take the high road, even when someone has wronged you so badly? Is there a difference between being petty and just demanding what you're owed? And what about Aaron's dilemma at the end? He sees Jenna with a new guy, a guy who seems decent, and he's debating whether to warn him. What would you do? Is it your responsibility to save someone else from the heartbreak you experienced? Or do you risk looking like the crazy, controlling ex that you were painted as? It's such a difficult position to be in. You want to help, but you also desperately want it to just not be your problem anymore. This story is also a powerful reminder to trust that little voice inside you. That feeling Marcus had on the couch when she tilted her phone. We all have those moments, don't we? Those little gut feelings that something is off. How many times have we pushed that feeling down, telling ourselves we're being paranoid or insecure, just like Jenna told Marcus he was? True closure, I think, isn't about revenge. It's about peace. It's about getting to a place where you can water your plants and not feel the need to check their social media. It's about rebuilding your own trust in yourself. Marcus's greatest victory wasn't exposing Jenna. It was believing himself. Because the loudest truths are often the ones you have to learn to hear in the silence. If this story made you feel understood, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to Cocoa Table Reddit. Every follow and comment gives me the motivation to keep sharing these real, emotional stories with you. And if you have a story of your own, feel free to share it in the comments. I'm always here to listen.